Welcome to Beginnings and Breakthroughs. This is where I celebrate and coach people just like you who are on a mission to heal their metabolisms, feel better fast, and live their best lives. We will be walking through what's worked for them and what they've discovered on their journeys, and then I'll coach them on their next best steps. And if you're interested in being a guest, stay tuned and I'll be sharing how you can join me too. All right, I will be right back with our awesome guest. All right, you may not know this about me, but I was on a show called Freaky Eaters on the Learning Channel on TLC for a couple of seasons. And that show lives on, I don't know, YouTube or somewhere. Every time I do Instagram or anything else, I get fans. It's pretty crazy. Anyway, I have a gal we're going to be talking to today in Beginnings and Breakthroughs who found me on Freaky Eaters. She's in her 20s, but she found me and she decided to do something about her sugar addiction using the sugar impact diet. So we're going to unpack that, what she did that you can use for yourself, and then what we're doing now to help her set her up for a great, long, healthy kick in life. So I will be right back. Before I do that, let me just tell you a little bit about Mekenna, who is at the University of Arizona. And yes, those are my dogs fighting in the background. Yes, they are. They are like my new puppy, 6 months old, is literally terrorizing my 15-year-old Chihuahua. Anyway, super active gal, Mekenna. She is, works at a ranch. She is a university student who is becoming a therapist specializing in trauma, and super active gal, and really, really resilient and really focused, and someone I think is going to go far in life. So I will be right back with Mekenna. Stay with me. So Mekenna, you found me on Freaky Eaters. Where is this even being aired? Is it on YouTube? How are people finding this show? It seems like this show lurks everywhere.
Definitely YouTube.
Right.
And I saw it a long time ago. I have no idea where, but I also saw it a long time ago before my adventures into becoming a therapist.
Got it.
I'm almost done with school.
Nice. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I saw. So for those of you who are going, what the heck is Freaky Eaters, JJ? So I think it was maybe, was it 10 years ago? No, it was longer than that. It was about 14 years ago, 12, 14 years ago. I was on a series with my buddy, Dr. Mike Dow, called Freaky Eaters. And the best way to explain the show is it is like Hoarders meets My Strange Addiction. And it was literally people who had crazy food habits, like they would only eat potatoes, or they would only eat tartar sauce, or they had to have tartar sauce on everything, like just weird food behaviors. And they sent us in, and Mike Dow's the psychotherapist, and I was the nutrition person, and he thought everything was based in emotions or trauma, and I thought everything was based on genetics and exposure. So it was a very fun, and we would do all this crazy stuff to help people change what had been for all of them lifelong situations. And so after that, I don't think I'd even written, the Virgin Diet was coming out right after that, I think. And then after that, I wrote the Sugar Impact Diet. So I've always been about helping people figure out which foods work for them and how to break free of things like sugar addiction. And we were talking offline that you initially went on this because I said, you're very different than the person that I normally have on the show or is on social. I do have this little cult following of Freaky Eaters fans, but you are in your 20s studying to be almost a therapist now, I think, in trauma, right? You're going to work in trauma?
Yes, ma'am.
Very cool. I'm on my podcast. For everyone listening, you'll want to listen to the podcast episode with Amy Apigian. That's just phenomenal on trauma. It's such an interesting subject and so needed. So you said you sought me out because you wanted to break free of your sugar addiction. Let's dive into that. What was going on?
I'm a person who just forgets to eat and has, quick things to grab and go. because I'm constantly the person that doesn't want to sit still and is constantly working. And so for me, it was actually an act of portion control, and also, making sure I'm actually eating vegetables and slowing down my eating habits so that, and remembering to eat. That's the biggest thing, so that I don't have to grab and go and run. So preparing, spending time preparing food that's healthy.
And you said, because you could still like, although most people don't grab and go with salmon and Brussels sprouts, they're going to grab like some crappy thing. But you also said you come from a long line of sugar eaters in your family.
Right.
Like everyone's eating a lot of sugar. So, it's always that question, is this genetic? Where is this coming from? Or is it a learned behavior? Like, this is how you were raised, exposure equals preference. So you went on the sugar impact diet. Was it challenging to get rid of your sugar habit, or was it just really you just hadn't paid attention to it before?
A little bit of both. I hadn't paid attention to it, but also for me, it was I needed to just make my gut happy, make my body happy, because I need the protein to keep going during my day. I'm always on my feet, and yes, and I do believe it's genetic. Addiction runs on both sides of my family, so
Ah,
everybody's addicted to something.
yeah. I have a friend who is a lifelong addict who's convinced everyone's an addict. I'm like, actually, I don't have any of the addiction genes. Like, like I don't think everyone's an addict. It is interesting with sugar because there's definitely a strong addictive place to it. And I love what Dr. Mark Hyman says. It's the number one recreational drug of choice. If you look at sugar and compare it to opiates, they've done studies where, mice given the choice or rats given the choice, pick the sugar and it lights up the same pleasure center in the brain. So there's a clear addictive piece to it. And different than something like alcohol, it's not like you can just say, I'm not going to the bar. You can't say, I'm not going to eat anymore. So, it's sneaking into places everywhere and lighting you up. Um,
Sure.
and there's definitely a genetic beyond just the addictive part of it. And we actually did this on Freaky Eaters. I was using a genetic test that could tell me if someone was a super taster. It could tell me if they had a sweet tooth or were a sweet taster. Because we had one guy who put maple syrup on everything. It absolutely gagged me because
Oh my
maple
gosh.
syrup. I got food poisoning when I was a little kid, and I was eating like pancakes with maple syrup or something. I can't be around it. Like it just gags me. So I had to be surrounded by vats of maple syrup, and I'm like, I cannot be here. Like I'm going to like lose it. Um, but there are definitely the people who the more sweet they eat, the more sweet they want, and the other people who just they just need the sweet. My adopted mom's one of those, and like I could care less about sweet. So it was interesting when I wrote Sugar Impact Diet because I was determined to help people break free of their sugar addiction and to do it a couple different ways. One of them is dealing with the genetics. One of it was dealing with the blood sugar instability and gut microbiome issues, and one of it was just teaching them to appreciate natural sweetness. And you said something really important, and it's actually going to be one of I always say it's going to be my last book, is going to be about protein first, and that we can live without carbohydrates. It won't be fun, but we can't live without protein and fat. And when you really structure your diet protein first, you have increased satiety, you have better blood sugar control. So a lot of the sugar craving stuff can go away purely with that intervention that you just talked about, starting with protein. So that was a good one. So you went on the program. How quickly were you able to make that shift, and what were the things you noticed?
Within a month, I was able to really cut back and have, a portion control. Like, for example, like extremely sugary coffees. Like I can do now just a cup of black coffee with a little bit of creamer. It doesn't have to be a Starbucks crazy drink. Um,
We always want, like my husband and I will walk into Starbucks and watch this situation going on. And in nothing, truthfully, what really gets me is seeing little kids with Frappuccinos. And I'm like, oh my gosh, these kids are like, what are they do? What are these parents doing giving this kid this 60 grams of sugar with caffeine and they're like 8? don't do this,
Oh no.
bad.
Yeah, and for me too, my taste buds changed.
Good.
So for me, it's like it's not a ton of sweetness, even in coffee. Like a super sweet coffee from Starbucks doesn't work for me. Like I'm lucky if I'll finish it. It's too sweet. Um,
Yay, that's exactly when I set out to do this. And I had 900 people do this as a test. And I picked 900 people that were sugar addicts. They couldn't give up their sweet, and I was like, okay, I didn't pick the easy ones. But my whole point was if we didn't go cold turkey, which I think is the toughest thing ever, unless you can put people into some kind of, rehab center, like forget it, they're in the real world. So but if you can teach people to taper and start to appreciate natural sweetness and sour and spicy, all of a sudden when they go back, they'll go, ugh, that's just gross. So hearing you say that makes me beyond excited that
oh,
is in fact what happened. So what
yeah.
other things did you notice as results when you went through this?
That was a big deal. I had a lot more energy, that's for sure. I was able to last longer in a workout.
Now, and
Um,
here's the big thing. Like before, you were fueling yourself on sugar, which people are like, "Oh, I need some energy. I'll have that." I'm like that, but that's like false energy. It's short-term
right,
energy. It's like, you know, it's like spending your immediate cash instead of really building up your bank account and just using the interest.
right, right. Yeah, so that was the biggest thing is having more energy during a workout. Like when your muscles start to burn out, I was able to last a little bit longer, on protein, obviously, because I'm burning the proper energy. Um, and rebuild, the other thing too is the recovery period was getting a little bit quicker with muscles too.
I wrote a little song to remind you Choice Hotels get you more of the experiences you value. The Cambria Hotel's got it all. A rooftop bar, have a ball. Cocktails up here feel just right. Is Cambria amazing? Alright. Bring a date, your team, or even your mom. Book direct at choicehotels.com. See you on the roof.
So a couple things would happen there. And this is important because I know now you're going to train for a marathon. You're also healing a broken bone. So, the reason that I want to make sure people are getting optimal protein, and it's especially important right now for you. You might not think about this. And, I get a lot of people coming in their 40s, 50s, 60s. But the reality is what happens in your 20s and 30s is going to set you up for how awesome your life is going to be or not in your 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. And you kind of have to reverse engineer your whole life, right? If you want to be like kicking it in your 80s, then you have to be like really pushing it hard in your 20s and 30s so that you can maintain that. And
Sure.
so, in order for you to build muscle, and I'll show you how the whole thing works with more energy. In order for you to build muscle, you need two things. Now, people think, oh, I want more muscle, I'll eat more protein. Well, you can't just sit on the couch, eat a steak, and build muscle. It does not work that way. It would be amazing if you
Sure.
could, but it doesn't. Nor can you go lift really heavy weights and not give yourself the adequate building blocks that your body needs to recover. And there's two
Sure.
things it needs. It needs the protein, the amino acids, because you've got to use those to build muscle. And you want to make sure you have an adequate amount, because if you don't have an adequate amount, your body's not going to say, hey, you know what? I can either have my heart pump or I can build muscle. It's going to go, yeah, I'm going to pump my heart, forget the muscle, right? So you got to have adequate supplies. And then once you've got what you need to build the muscle, then the second part is to insert extra fuel storage in the muscle. Here's the cool thing with muscle. It's like this, I've heard it referred to as a metabolic sink. I like to call it as your high margin of error. It's like where you can store extra energy rather than storing it as fat. Now, personally, I would much rather store extra energy. That's dogfight over here. I would much rather store extra energy in my muscles as, it's how carbohydrates are stored as glycogen than going and storing on my body as fat. And I think probably everyone's in agreement on that. And so you want to build more muscle because more muscle means you have more area to store those carbohydrates for energy. So then you have more energy during your workout than you used to have before. So that's how that all works.
Makes
And
sense. Is that part of the
yeah.
ATP cycle?
So ATP, wow, are you doing this in your did you have to take
Um, I
physiology?
I did in my undergrad.
Ah, okay. God, I still remember, having to memorize the Krebs cycle. It's like I just went,
I know
I
it's
just
like
went, oh, ew. Well, so, it depends on what you're breaking down. Remember, you have fat oxidation and you have sugar oxidation, and sugar oxidation is what we're going to do when we're doing more intense exercise. It's interesting because people always think, oh, I want to burn more fat. Well, the time you're burning fat is when you are sitting, easy walking. When you're really in there working out hard, you're going to be burning sugar because it's harder workouts. And so that's what you've got to look at. What is going to be more efficient for your body to do at the time, and which fuel sources. And ideally, you can switch between them. And usually, you're going to be burning fat or sugar, but if you have more protein than you need, you can burn some of that too. So you don't have to worry about, oh my gosh, like we don't need to overload our body with protein, but I think there's been a lot of fear out there that too much protein, all these bad things can happen. The
right,
reality is, if, for kidney disease, excess protein's a problem, but if you have healthy kidneys, it's not.
right.
And, they talk about, well, if you eat too much protein, you'll leach calcium from your bones. No, because you'll actually have more calcium on board anyway. So
Sure.
it's a net, it's the net the same. So really no issues there, but it's really like with anything, you want to give your body optimal amounts. If anything, I tend to go a little more than I might need for protein because it's so satiating and more thermic, and I'd rather have a little more than I need than not quite enough. So that's where I go there, but you don't need to go crazy on it. So that's the other piece. All right, and you also said that you did it for your mental health. Like, walk me through what you noticed there.
For that, I actually went to a naturopath when I was in high school, and she kind of helped me too to cut back on some of the sugar because that sugar, like, it makes you feel crappy. There's not enough protein while I'm in school to think clearly.
Right,
I'm just running on sugar.
right.
And so that was a big deal. So, not having foggy thinking and having more energy for my brain to be able to learn a little bit better.
How cool that you went to a naturopath in high school that was helping you with that. Who was the doc? Let's do a shout out.
Dr. Holly Gower.
Okay, Dr. Holly Gower, yay you. And the other thing that's so important there are getting good healthy fats. Of course, when you look at like what's going to help with your brain and focus, you need all of it. Your brain's a fat head, and especially
Sure.
omega-3 fats, right? And then and those omega-3 fats also help with bone remodeling, so they're important along with the protein as you're healing that bone that you're healing right now. So that is another important thing. So now you have this plan to run a half marathon.
Yes.
Where did that come from? What made you decide to do that?
I've always done, I did some track running in high school. The 4x4 was my race. That was the only race I did really, really well in. And then after high school, I ran a lot of 5Ks. And there's a lot of halves that would be really fun to do out here in Arizona. The tricky part is when I broke my arm, I was supposed to climb a 14er with a friend this year, and I couldn't do it.
So I have no idea what climbing a 14er is. Is that a 14-mile race? What is climbing a 14er?
It is,
Or is it a 14, like, what is it?
It's climbing above 14,000 feet on a mountain. They're all over Colorado. The one we were going to do was in California. And that was going to be the first one I ever did. But after breaking my arm, I'm considered a fall risk until January. So I couldn't really do anything. I'm hiking now. I just have to be careful because even the slightest bump on the outside of my elbow wants me to scream bloody murder. So it's still really painful. It will never be straight, 100%. Doing push-ups will be interesting when that happens. But I did 11 weeks of serious physical therapy. I was lucky I didn't have to wear a cast, so there really wasn't any muscle loss. But it does affect balance when you're hiking and trying not to fall on your face.
Right. And it's always like, don't hit this. And the minute you think you can't hit something, you seem to hit it all the time. So
yeah. Well, and there's 17 screws in there and a plate.
Oh boy, you really did that number
Yeah,
on that.
yeah, it runs all the way up.
Holy smokes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, ouch on that. Hold on, I'm getting one second. Go away. Okay. Little dog issue here. So then your next thing is to run a half marathon, and I am not. And it's funny. I used to work with a lot of athletes back in the day, but a lot of pro boxers. I don't know quite how I got into heavyweight boxers and martial artists, and not much in the way of marathon running. I tend to like more of a blend of doing some resistance training and HIIT training and marathon running. But I think anything, especially right now, one of the big things that you'll want to make sure you do in your 20s and 30s, this is your best time to build muscle and really make sure your bones are strong. And it sounds like whatever you did must have been just a fluke of hitting something the wrong way. But
No, it was something stupid I did.
something stupid. Okay. Of course, everyone's like, what'd she do? What's the stupid thing? But one thing I would absolutely make sure of is that you've got good bone mineral density.
Okay.
So you can do that getting a DEXA scan. And everyone listening, listen, whatever age you're at, a DEXA scan is an important scan because it tells you not just your bone mineral density, which, for some reason they're like, have that done at 50. I'm like, 50 is way too late. You should really have that done in your teens, and then your teens and 20s are when the big interventions happen. But we can do things at any time if it's at least just to stop the loss. But hopefully to build, and resistance training is a great way, of course, to put the stress on the bones and build bone. But it also gives you your body fat percentage, your fat-free mass percentage, and your visceral body fat, like how much of the fat's really around your organs. And for everybody listening, what we really want to know is everyone's like, I can pinch an inch. It's not the inch pinching that's the problem. It's the other stuff you can't see that you know's in there that's the problem. And that's the stuff that can make problems for everybody. I also think that for a lot of people, we just don't have enough muscle. And again, you in your 20s and 30s, like you are in the primo muscle building time. This is it.
Works for me.
I know that they talk about, I have a friend who does a lot of coaching. He says, marathon runners have the muscle mass of a couch potato. Look at a marathon runner versus a sprinter. And so the one thing I would emphasize with you as you start to train for a marathon is this. Number one, when you do a lot more of that type of training, you create a lot more oxidative stress, meaning because you're breathing more, right? And when you're breathing more, you're generating more free radicals. So one of the things that's known is that you want to make sure you're getting in some really good antioxidants to help lower that, because that contributes to a lot of the inflammation that can happen because of it. And make sure that you are also doing that resistance training, not just a lot of running, because otherwise you'll raise stress hormones,
Sure.
You'll create oxidative stress, and you'll lose muscle. And this is not when you want that to happen.
Sure.
You don't ever want it to happen, but not now.
Right.
So that's it. And also, it'll make you in some ways. It's funny, when I was helping people with marathons, I was making them do high intensity interval training and resistance training. And I was like, okay, I know that's not typical, but I want to offset anything. So I look at how can we offset some of the things that could happen from this, right? So
Right.
There you go. Those are the things I'd focus on.
Perfect. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Awesome. Well, I'm super excited about the work you're going to be doing out in the world.
Thank you. Me too. I'm so stoked.
And if you do ever want to do an internship, I would hook you up with my buddy, Dr. Amy Appigian. She is amazing. Look her up. I think she is doing just groundbreaking work around trauma. She's got a summit she's done twice called the Biology of Trauma Summit.
Wow.
And she's training practitioners on how to deal with trauma. And she's really getting trauma on the map so people understand what an issue it is for our health, because I think it's still, because it's not something like, you can't take your blood pressure, or, it's,
Right.
It's not something that's easy to test for.
No.
That people don't really understand the impact that it has. So
Yeah, and it
need more of you.
impacts a lot. And yeah, it impacts a lot. And the other thing that's interesting is my second internship that I just acquired. It is a program that focuses on addiction and trauma. So,
Nice.
which is going to be a huge blessing for me to be able to learn
Yeah.
from my new supervisor.
Wow. Very, very cool. I love that. All right. Well, keep me updated as to what happens with your racing, what happens with your arm, and what happens with your career.
Thank you so much. It's been an honor to meet you.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Alrighty, so big thing to just think about here is wherever you are, wherever you are in life, like whatever year you are, you know, it is never too late. There's a dog again. I really wish I should have a video of this. Like it's like a Grand Prix raceway with my dog here. Anyway, it's never too late to do this, to get started building that muscle and focus on the protein that you need to do so. So make sure that you have got that. You are on my watch list here to make sure that you got good bone density, good muscle mass, because as we age, it is everything, everything, everything. Okay. If you've not yet subscribed to the show, subscribe to jj.com. There you go. It is that easy, and I'll see you next time.